Welcome back, troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. So I was on eBay one night, and I happened to stumble upon this auction from a pawn shop up in Michigan. And when I first looked at it, I thought, is that a extremely rare Norland-era black Les Paul Deluxe? But then I started to go through the listing, and I found out, no, that's a brand new reissue, but it's not black like it looks like in the photos. Turned out to be one of the Guitar Center exclusive Les Paul Deluxe. And I've wanted to document one of these things since they first came out in 2018. So let's go ahead and banish these packing peanuts and get this thing out. Just like that. Aren't you guys glad you didn't have to watch all that? Worst packing combination possible. Packing peanuts filled to the brim with bubble wrap and stuff to make it stick to it. If you're going to use packing peanuts, guys, only fill half the box and then use your bubble wrap at the top. But anyways, one of my favorite Norland era models is the Sparkle Top Les Paul Deluxe. So let's go ahead and check out Guitar Center's reissue of it. Now, I remember being pretty excited when these things were reissued because it was also around the exact same time that I was able to actually purchase my first Norland era one. So, in that video of my first Sparkle Top Blue Deluxe, I did a little comparison. So this video isn't so much a direct comparison. I mean, I'll show you them side by side here, and we'll talk about some of the light differences, but I just want to appreciate this particular reissue slash tribute for what it is in today's episode. So first off, we have an absolutely beautiful dark blue sparkle, but honestly, it looks nothing like the original one. This is more like a midnight blue rather than the actual sparkle blue, but it has its own charm at the same time. They still have our mini humbuckers here, and I'm actually surprised about the neck profile. I was scared that that wasn't going to be quite accurate, but this doesn't feel quite half bad. I'm even seeing they got some small details right, like the bushing style double ring Clusen tuners instead of the screw-on style ones. And then back here you can see the limited edition number. This one was number 38 out of the 75 that they had made. And yeah, I mean, it's not an exact replication, but it's pretty good for what it is because these were only $3,500 brand new. I remember being shocked back then that they weren't $5,500. And to be honest, I still am. It's so much that the used market actually has determined that these are worth more used now than they were brand new. And I remember Guitar Center kind of had a hard time selling these, where it took them like a year and a half or so to actually get through all their stock of 150 total. So let's do a quick, brief comparison here. So make no bones about it, they called this the Gibson Custom 1975 Les Paul Deluxe Tribute. They weren't trying to do a one-for-one replica reissue. They offered 75 in Basalt Blue Sparkle and 75 in Rocket Red Sparkle. And the reason why Guitar Center did this is their owner loves these things and has a history of them. You can check out his story in this video, or a brief rundown on it on my original 70 Sparkle Top Deluxe. But prior to Guitar Center's reissue of this, there had been a few custom like R6s done in a Sparkle Top finish that had the P90s, and it was kind of close, but this was the first time that somebody actually said, hey, we're actually trying to do like a tribute reissue to these things. So the new ones have a two-piece back, whereas the old ones, most of them would be pancake bodies. Pretty much none of them would be a two-piece back in any configuration. The newer ones have that deeper dish carve that the historics are known for, whereas the old ones, yeah, I mean, it was the 70s era. They're a little bit more flat, but we love them anyways. The new ones feature a one-piece mahogany neck, whereas the older ones, they'll either have a three-piece mahogany or a three-piece maple neck, depending on the year of production. The headstock pitch is a bit different on these new ones. They're a 17-degree pitch versus 14-degree on the vintage ones. Strangely enough, they didn't put a volute on these new ones. I feel like that's the one feature that they probably should have done because the originals had it, but whatever. Your serial numbers, they're a little bit different. Custom shop over here with that writing as we saw, whereas the old ones, they were just stamped, not marked a limited edition or anything. One of the bigger things is that this newer one is like a historic version, so it's got the long neck tenon versus the short or transitional neck tenon, depending on what year your original one was. And your frets, they're a little bit different, medium jumbo versus low wide. So you can look at the bodies here. Compare the headstocks right here. The backs. And the back of the headstock. And I think you can very honestly conclude that, I mean, this is a pretty poor tribute, to be honest. But I'm glad that these things exist and that they're out there. So for today's episode, let's just appreciate it for what it is. I wish they would have went for like the bigger headstock that these things had, but once again, super modernized feature. I mean, you gotta remember, Guitar Center had to sell 150 of these all by themselves. So some of these modernized specs and appointments here, it was just to make it so somebody who doesn't love and worship the originals would still want one of these just because of how beautiful it is. But perhaps one of the coolest things is the fact that you get a lift-in case with one of these. I mean, that was pretty common in the custom shops of this era. Oh, nice, a brown backplate. At least they got that right, so you can swap out that medallion if you want to. But, uh-oh, looks like I'm missing my COA on this one. That's why it's not so good to buy from pawn shops. They don't know what guitars should have. But anyways, let's go ahead and throw this one on the workbench to clean it up and then take a look at its individual parts and specs. Wow, this thing was a lot dirtier and scratched up than I was expecting when I bought it. But hey, what do you know? Guitar Center's wrong on their specs, as per usual. These do not have long neck tenons, and that's a big thing to get wrong. And you want to know what's even worse? This isn't even a real ABR1 bridge. It's like what they use on a Gibson USA yet today. It's got the bushing in the body. So yeah, anything that made this a little bit more special as compared to an original one, that just went out the window. Like, it's still actually a historic ABR1 bridge on top of those, but it's just on a Nashville style stud. So technically that is correct, depending if you had a Kalamazoo original one or a Nashville one. And I guess also technically the short neck tenon would also be more correct than a long neck one. But that's just disappointing that Guitar Center quite frequently gets specs wrong on their guitars. And unless I took them apart to show you guys, nobody would ever know. But anyways, our neck pickup labeled Rhythm LP Deluxe, and the bridge as Lead LP Deluxe. For some reason, I could not get this neck pickup out. I had to yank it out. Because as I kept turning this, there's just one point where it stopped turning, and it would just like jump or something. I think it has something to do with that. But after some tinkering, I was able to get it. So when you see these cavities for the first time, they have these base plates in them. And then these screws go into those locations, and you can also put P90 pickups in here if you want. You will have to drill a small hole into the wood though, but that's what these two holes in the base plate are for. It's only secured to it using two screws right there. But here you can see our two-piece maple top and our mahogany body. And within the circuit, I get 6.19k ohms in our bridge pickup. The neck pickup's pretty much the same. Middle position, just for fun, 3.09. I will say, after I cleaned this up and used my light scratch remover, this whole top kind of lightened up just a tad. Now it actually looks quite spectacular. But they tried to use the same reflector style knobs, but no, they don't look like that from the 70s. The 70s ones have a very nice aesthetic to them. These are very modern looking. And you can see right here, there is a small impression on the top of the guitar. That's because the pick guard touches down right there. Speaking of which, here's what the pickguard itself looks like. I was surprised how dusty it was under here. When I think 4-year-old guitar, I think, okay, it might have a few light nicks and dings, but this thing's actually pretty worn. It had a lot of scratches. Thankfully, I was able to get a lot of them off, but you'll see some more here in a minute. So moving on from the maple top mahogany body, we've got the mahogany neck with the rosewood fretboard, 22 medium jumbo frets, 12-inch fretboard radius, 24 3/4-inch scale length, all that normal good stuff. You do have the acrylic inlays. They just look very modern rather than the vintage ones, but technically that is an era-correct spec. This one's got a little bit of fret wear. I mean, this thing was played for the 4 years. Generally, I think a 4-year-old guitar would just have like very light wear, but if you really think about it, somebody could have got this guitar like as their freshman guitar gift present and then played it all the way through their senior year. I would expect a guitar to have a lot of wear in that aspect. So I guess it kind of depends where you are in your life for that. Because look at this headstock. It's just, I don't get it. How does a headstock get so scratched up? Gigging musicians, please tell me. Because it's not like the strings were left long necessarily on this one. I can understand a small lacquer chip or a ding right here because oops, you dinged it up into something. But scratches like this, to me, it just shows a careless owner. But our truss rod is looking good right there. And we have a deluxe truss rod cover. For a 70s model, that Les Paul model silkscreen is quite high up the headstock right there. But then again, they didn't really get the headstock shape exactly right either. But I am happy with the neck specs that they chose out for this. So if nothing else, they got that. So 1.68 inches at the nut width, 2.08 by the 12th, 0.83 at the first fret neck depth, and wow, 0.87 by the 12th. That is a thin neck.
Here's what that looks like at the 1st fret and the 12th fret. You can see it definitely gets a little bit wider feeling, but maintains that C-shaped neck profile. Definitely a nice thin neck shape though. Moving on to the back. So when you get this in the light, you can actually see quite significant amount of buckle worming on the back. Got some dings right here too. So again, lots of evidence of this one actually being gigged. So if you're interested in being the next owner of this one, remember, it's got wear and tear. This is not a collectible. Add this to the wonderful things that this guitar is not living up to expectations for. To get this off, I actually had to use this little suction cup in the first place. But now that I've gotten it off, it won't fit back in. It's like the body has shrunk just enough to make it so this plate does not secure anymore. So it's going to stick up a little proud over here because of that. Now you can fix that by sanding it down a little bit. And it's not going to affect playability at all because at least it's flat and even on those other locations. But yeah, there you go. That's 2018 for you. But here's what our control cavity looks like. We've got Gibson branded pots. We don't have any metal shielding plate or anything like that, just all done up custom shop style. We've got a plastic output jack plate and our strap buttons in our regular locations. Again, there is a spare brown back plate in the case, but we've got the medallion on it right now. This has got the thin binding in the cutaway and a pretty nasty ding right there on the horn. Even an area of worn through finish right here. He must have been a soloer. Light lacquer shrinking around the neck, but that's pretty common. Looks like a little bit of wear down here by the strap, but as far as the rest, not too bad. Now that wood grain is incredibly freaky. I thought for a minute, does this actually have a 3-piece mahogany neck? I mean, doesn't that look like it? So it might look like it right there, but then as soon as you get here, I don't see that faux seam line anymore. So I do believe it is a 1-piece mahogany neck, but that is kind of cool. There's a couple of impressions back here. And now onto the back of the headstock. So numbered 38 of 75. This feels like it's on the outside of the lacquer, so be careful cleaning your guitar. I did not touch this area because I didn't want to accidentally erase that. But look what's happening here. It's like the tuner's applying so much pressure that the lacquer has kind of like flaked up. Like if you were to pick at it from the side, I think that would completely chip off. You can see it a little bit right here on this tuner too. So I'm not sure if this guy dinged it up or hung it up on something right here, or if that's just, you know, from the tuner's pressure, but that is there. Got a ding on the back of the headstock right here to match your lacquer chip right there. All said and done, this one weighs a little under 9 pounds, 8 pounds, 14.6 ounces. Let's go ahead, plug it in, and have some fun.
And then to make matters even worse, on top of all this undisclosed damage, it actually had a high fret on the 14th area, so I had to go get that taken care of. So unfortunately during the playing demo, I don't have that fixed yet, but I got that secured if you want to purchase this guitar from me. Now that we know all about the Guitar Center Blue Sparkle Top Deluxe Les Paul Tribute, what are my final thoughts on this? Probably the worst guitar that I've demoed in quite some time. Didn't feel good to play, didn't particularly sound all that fantastic. However, I don't think this was the best example to document out of this. I think there's something a little bit wonky going on with the neck. But overall, I just feel really sad and let down by this whole tribute. I get it, they weren't trying to be 100% accurate, so I started to fall in love with having the idea of a long neck tenon and a true ABR1 bridge, but it didn't actually end up being that. We've got the faux BR1 and a short neck tenon yet. But at least they have the thin neck profile going for it. So that is a win as far as, trying to make it like the originals. But everything else, I mean, I was initially thinking this was like a R6 or an R7 type guitar that had just been reissued with a different neck profile. But now it's more so just like a custom shop Les Paul Deluxe, which isn't a guitar that generally exists too often. So in that aspect, yeah, it's kind of cool. But now I understand why these were only $3,500 brand new. So as one of the biggest fans of the original Sparkle Tops, yeah, not really digging these tributes all that much. But hey, maybe I'll try a Rocket Red Sparkle one in the future, just to see if this was a dog. Alright, troglodytes, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will catch you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.